general search services and text ads. The Justice Department said that several states had sued Google for illegally cementing its dominance. Now, Google paid billions of dollars to automatically handle search queries on smartphones and web browsers. Now, what could this mean for customers? Is Google breakup on the cards? To talk about this, first I'm joined by Rishabh Bhatnagar from NDTV Profit. Hi, Rishabh. Give us more details, essentially, of what this could entail. Now, there are questions being raised as to whether this could perhaps mean that there could be a breakup of the huge tech giant on the cards.
Right, Nupur, thanks for having me. Just to put in a little bit of context, this could be one of the largest tech rulings that we've seen, at least in the past couple of decades. The last one was against Microsoft, and the judge had said that Microsoft should be broken up. However, Microsoft had then appealed back in 2000, and Microsoft had then appealed and it did not split up. But what we did see from Microsoft was that it did slow down and eventually left space for larger companies, like smaller companies at the time, like Google, to actually come in and sort of set their pace in terms of the browsers and the search history. What we're also seeing from this, and this is a landmark ruling already from Judge Amit Mehta, like you mentioned, that Google should be broken up. Just for some more context, Nupur, a breaking up of Google is the most extreme ruling that could be against Google. Some more possible remedies also include that Google would be mandated to share its data with other smaller competitors. What we're also seeing that it could possibly lead to broader implications for the tech sector, given that Meta and Amazon, all these big tech companies, are also facing their own battles, their own antitrust battles against Department of Justice for various monopolistic behaviors that they're exhibiting.
All right, absolutely. So, Rishabh, do stay with us. I'm going to come back to you in just a bit to discuss the future, not just of Google, but also to understand the background of this. But joining us right now on the broadcast is Mr. Virag Gupta. He's an advocate and cyber law expert. Mr. Gupta, thank you very much for joining us today. Now, Mr. Gupta, of course, there's been a lot of noise around this ruling that came in. What do you make of what's going on, and how do you see this impacting Google and other such monopolies?
Nupur, the good thing is that most of the tech companies are headed by Indians, and this judgment has also been given by a person who is from the Indian origin. And this will have a big impact not only in US but also in India and the whole world. And it has to be seen from the perspective that this whole fight is towards capturing the economy of the artificial intelligence. And we have to see 3-4 important aspects regarding this Android OS, for which this judgment will greatly impact. So around 2.5 billion devices are using that Google OS system. Now they have paid some approximately $26 billion, and $20 billion goes to Apple. Now all these companies are fighting to capture the economy with each other, but involved in the same those unlawful principles for which this judgment was passed. So Apple, Meta, and other companies are also facing the same inquiry. But we have to understand that this judgment is primarily to protect the US tax system, US consumers, and US legal system. And this has not a final decision to break the Google, because there may be many options. Government may come with some other options, and those options can be that if Google may share more data, if they can stop unfair these practices, or they pay more fine and penalty in US. But we have to see that how it will impact Indian economy and Indian tech system.
Right, absolutely. You mentioned the Indian economy now. How do you think this will impact India and customers in India? Apart from that, Mr. Gupta, also, what is your sense of monopolies at large? Is this something that could send out a very sort of a message to them?
No, Nupur, whenever we talk in India, we talk about only the Indian industries, but we have to see that US, these tech giants have mainly captured the Indian economy in many aspects. And if this judgment is implemented, it will have four big impact in Indian economy. The first impact is that Indian startup system, if released from the monopoly of the Google system, then it will create more employment and it will eliminate some sort of disparities. The second aspect is we have seen that these companies were paying huge amount to each other. So that amount is not transparently recorded by the Indian tax authorities. So if that is disclosed in India, because India being the biggest market for these tech companies, so government will earn a huge amount of GST and other corporate taxes from the transactions which are not presently recorded by the Indian authorities. Now, the big thing is that our regulator, like the Competition Commission, which is as per the Competition Act 2002, will have more authority and they may get more jurisdiction after this judgment by the US court. And lastly, it will have a good impact on Indian democratic system and the elections, because ultimately even Trump has said that Google and other companies are trying to influence the US elections. So they are influencing the Indian elections also. So once they are surrendering before the state authorities in US, so I think finally they will have to come as per the Indian jurisdictional law also.
Now, as you're pointing out, of course, for India, it could have a lot of impacts. Now, as you yourself said, that there has been talk of, these monopolies also meddling in the political space.
No, we have to see four aspects. The first aspect is in October 2013, Election Commission issued a notification to regulate these tech giants, but that was not implemented. That notification was issued on our representation. And second thing is that in 2016, government gave undertaking before the Delhi High Court that these tech companies will fully be taxed, whether direct tax or indirect taxation, but they are doing like we can say that Meta is transferring all the data with their group companies, Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram. But in that transaction, there is no compliance of the Indian legal system or the Supreme Court 9 judges judgment in the privacy matter, and they are not paying any taxes also in India, and we are facing a complex corporate structure. So these companies, because their head office is in US, so it is easy for US regulators to enforce the law. And their one arm is in the Ireland, one arm is the Singapore, and India basically is for them a big market where they are controlling through a marketing company. So I think that this is a message for Indian authorities and regulators also, that they need to enforce the law. They need to recover the big penalty from these companies for non-compliance of the whatsoever we have the law, like the IT Act or the IT intermediary rules or the Competition Commission. So I think that this can be a good beginning point for Indian authorities, Indian lawmakers and Indian regulators.
All right, Mr. Gupta, appreciate your taking out the time and speaking to us on this issue. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Nupur.
All right, let's in fact now go back to Rishabh. Rishabh, as we were earlier talking now, Google's monopolistic practices have actually been in focus since 2005. So take us through what we've seen and what has moved since then.
Right, Nupur. I have a brief timeline of this entire issue with me. 2005 is when it all started. That is when Apple and Google actually entered into a deal, and Google secured the rights to actually have its browser, its search option rather, on the Safari browser that is owned by Apple. Now that deal would have gone down for quite a large sum, a few $1 billion at least. 2014 is when, through court proceedings, it was known that Google had paid at the time in 2005 about $1 billion for this. 2020 is when this probe began, is when the US Department of Justice, along with 11 states of the United States of America, actually sued Google for this illegal search monopoly that it held. 2021 is when Google denied the allegations as expected, and it appealed against the case that was filed against it. 2022 is when the case was still under probe, so the deal between Google and Apple continued, and it was registered that by this time about $18 billion had been paid by Google to Apple to be the sole rights holder for search on Apple's Safari browser. 2023 is when DOJ again moved the court against Google, and September 2023 is when the antitrust trial actually began. August 2024 jumped to August 2024. This entire case summed up. Judge Amit Mehta delivered this landmark judgment. He said that big tech company Google indeed is a monopolistic company, and it has indulged in monopolistic practices throughout the years, and it should be punished. Now what we're waiting for is 6th of September is when the final sort of sentencing, if we can call it that, the final punishment and what will be meted out to Google will be handed out. Like I also mentioned earlier, there's about 3 or 4 possible arrangements. A breaking up of Google is the extreme one. It could be asked to abandon these exclusive deals, which actually is the root cause of all these monopolies. And it could also be asked to share data with smaller competitors. So these are the probable remedies, and we will look forward to September 6th is when we can expect a decision on this.
All right, absolutely, Rishabh. Thank you for that, but do stay with us, Rishabh. The other big story that we are tackling on the show today is a comment that has come in from the Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal. Now, he has said that rapid growth of e-commerce is a concern and not a matter of pride. While speaking at the launch of Pehle India report, he added that Amazon's 6,000 crore rupee loss smells like predatory pricing. Let's first take a look at what he said, and then we'll go back to Rishabh to discuss the background of this.
E-commerce is eating into the small retailers' high value, high margin products, which are the only products through which it survives. And therefore you will see that on particular items, the growth rate is phenomenal. Are we going to cause huge social disruption with this massive growth of e-commerce? And I don't see it a matter of pride that half our market could possibly become a part of the e-commerce network 10 years from now. It's a matter of concern. When Amazon says we're going to invest $1 billion in India and we all celebrate, we forget the underlying story that $1 billion is not coming in for any great service or any great investment to support the Indian economy. They made $1 billion loss in their balance sheet that year. They have to fill in that loss. And how did that loss get caused? They paid 1,000 crores to professionals. I don't know who these professionals are. I'm myself a chartered accountant. I've done law. But I'd love to know which chartered accountants, professionals, lawyers get 1,000 crores. Unless you're paying all the top lawyers to block them, so that nobody can fight a case against you. If you make 6,000 crore loss in 1 year, does that not smell of predatory pricing to any of you? What did that loss come on? They are after all an e-commerce platform. They are not allowed to do B2C. The e-commerce platform legally cannot do business to consumer. They create entities where Indians contribute to making those entities sadly. Then they get caught, so they start closing down those entities. That's part 2 of the story. But they only read out all the business through an entity to show that it's business to business. But reality is all of you buy on these platforms, don't you? How do you buy? B2C is not allowed on these platforms. How are they doing it?
All right, so Rishabh, that's a comment that's come in from the Commerce Minister that's caused quite a bit of a flutter. So to begin with, give us the background of this event. What does Pehle India's report on e-commerce boom actually say?
Right, Nupur, I was there at the event earlier this morning, and when Piyush Goyal actually took the stage, the atmosphere was quite tense because the report was actually in a very positive tone about the growth of e-commerce and quick commerce. It did mention that a lot of sellers have been able to approach newer markets. A lot of sellers have achieved and seen growth that they possibly never had earlier. When your average kirana seller actually goes online, it opens up an entirely new market to them. With the enablement of delivery executives coming in, a person or a store that actually has items that are only available and only reachable to a local population, say in Ghatkopar, can now actually deliver to Kolaba at not at only a very incremental cost. So when Piyush Goyal first took to stage, he said that he does not associate with the findings of the report at all. And a bit of background about Pehle India. Pehle India is a think tank. It's a well-established think tank about 10 to 12 years ago, and it was established by Rajiv Kumar. He is the former vice chairperson of the Niti Aayog, so he is a top bureaucrat in that sense. And when Piyush Goyal did take to stage, he said that he does not associate at all with the findings of the report. Back to you, Nupur.
Right. Also now, what is brought into focus has been, Rishabh, the e-commerce bill. Now, it was, talked about first in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, but not much has moved on from there on. It's still in a consultative process.
Yeah, Nupur, we were talking about monopolies in the earlier segment with respect to Google. This is not the first time Piyush Goyal has spoken up against e-commerce platforms. Early 2023 is when, again, he had expressed certain displeasure with the way Amazon had been operating, and today's attack was more focused on Amazon apart from the general e-commerce scene as well. On the bill, yeah, it has moved very, very slow. There has been a lot of public consultations, so we can expect that a lot of e-commerce platforms have actually gone to the Ministry of Commerce. Bunch of industries involved here actually. Ministry of Labour is also involved in the consultation process, so it will be a very lengthy process, but it has already been about 5 years, like you mentioned, since 2019. So we're all awaiting what sort of growth we're seeing on that front.
All right, Rishabh, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast and taking us through those two big stories. All right, it's time for a very short break, but on the other side, we bring you news and updates. Stay with us.